My name is Penelope, and ever since I can remember, I've always been the smartest one in the room. I'm not kidding. My IQ level is practically Einstein's, or even beyond it. I graduated from a special science high school when I was just 14. My dad, the doctor, always says that I get my brains from him. But no, that's not true. Intelligence is passed on from the mother, not the father. But I never really got to see how smart my mom was because she died when I was very little. Those who like and subscribe to our channel are geniuses too. Click now so you can continue watching this video. But my life turned completely upside down one day. I came home and found a man, woman, and 3 kids blocking the front door to the building. "Shut your mouth if you know what's good for you," the man said to the eldest kid. Then the woman pinched the youngest kid who started to cry. Apparently they lived here too. "What the hell do you want?" the man growled when he saw me. "Are you following us?" "Excuse me? I've lived in this building since I was born," I said to him. The doorman heard us. He quickly led them away to the elevators. "Sorry about that, miss," the doorman said. "That family just moved here last week. I think they live in the apartment above yours." I wanted to tell the doorman that they weren't a family. I saw the brown eyes of all 3 kids. The man and the woman had blue eyes. It's unusual for kids not to have blue eyes when both their parents have it. I completely forgot all about them when I got home because my dad told me some terrible news. There was a mysterious and highly contagious sickness going around. Because of this, my dad ordered me to stay home. He didn't want me to leave the house. I couldn't go to school, and I definitely couldn't go to Starbucks. "We don't know much about this disease yet," he said. "All we know is that it's deadly. So I'm putting you on house arrest for a few days, all right?" I sighed, but I agreed. Dad knows best. He's a great doctor after all. He said that a lot of people decided to stay home as well. He wanted to stay home with me, but he was needed at the hospital. At first, my house arrest felt like a vacation. But after a few days, I started to get edgy. I was getting so bored. There were just so many shows you can watch on Netflix. I wanted my Starbucks. I wanted to talk to my friends face to face. I remember leaning out the window that night, and I stared at the silent streets that were usually filled with the sounds of sirens, honking and cursing. That's when I heard that noise from upstairs. There was a loud bump and a crash. I heard the muffled sounds of a man shouting. Then I heard a loud snap, followed by a heartbreaking cry. Somebody was very angry and somebody was very scared. My curious nature wanted to find out what was going on. So I found a way to do it. I ran to my study table and pulled out the wires we were messing around with in school. It was actually a listening device with an earpiece and a separate transceiver. I found my old broken drone. It couldn't take videos anymore, but it could still fly. I taped the transceiver on the drone and flew it outside my window until it landed on the fire escape ladder upstairs. "Oh, my body hurts all over," I heard that woman say. Then she coughed. "I feel like I'm coming down with the flu." "I feel sick too," replied a man's voice. "But you don't hear me complaining, do you? We'll go ahead with the plan. Tomorrow we'll meet with a social worker to get the money for the kids. I swear those kids eat too damn much. I'm gonna bring them down to 1 meal a day. I don't want to spend that money for their food." My eyes flew open in shock. I listened to them all night. It was hard to understand them because everybody kept coughing and wheezing. They were all complaining that they couldn't breathe. Eventually, I pieced the whole story together. I was right. Those adults weren't the parents. They were foster parents, but they weren't using the money to take care of the kids. Those kids were just meal tickets for the adults. I wanted to tell my dad about it, but he just came home from the hospital then and he barely heard anything I said. Instead, he told me that he kept losing patients because of the mysterious sickness. There was nothing I could do about the health crisis. The only thing I could do right now was to help those kids. I had to take a shower first, though. I haven't bathed in 2 days, and I smelled like a wet dog. That night, my dad went back to the hospital again. Then he sent me a message. "I love you, Penny. Sorry for being mushy. It's crazy here in the hospital. I just found out that there's a new group of people who are sick. They live in our building. Can you believe it? The parents are knocked out but stable, and the kids are in bad shape. The eldest girl kept asking about the bill. I told her not to worry about the bill. Can you imagine how scared she must be if she's thinking about how much that hospital was going to charge them?" Suddenly, something clicked in my brain. "I love you too, Dad. How many kids are there now?" He replied, "There are 2, a boy and a girl, about 6 and 7 years old, I think. Don't you leave the house, okay?" There's a bad bug going around and you might catch it even if you're just walking around the building. I gasped and put on the earpiece again. This time I heard a little voice saying, Linda? I knew what to do. There was no other choice. I climbed out into the fire escape. I went into the apartment upstairs. I found the small boy in the middle of the room. He was curled up in a tight ball. Hello, Bill, I said gently. He cried when he saw me and he kept asking for Linda. I told him my name was Penny and that I was his new friend. Then I asked him to play. After a while, we climbed down the fire escape together. I brought him back to my house. I put him on my bed. I stroked his hair for a while and then we both fell asleep. Bill still had tears on his cheeks. I think I did too. I woke up when I heard a knock on the front door. Our housekeeper opened it as I peeked out. I saw the police and I saw my dad too. The police told him about the nurse who called them up last night. The nurse told them about the new patient they had. It was a little girl who lived in the building. The little girl said that they left a little boy named Bill in their house. So the police came to find the boy, but they found something else. They found the drone with a sticker. My name and address were on it. I never saw my dad look that angry at me before. They found Bill on my bed. I tried to tell them about what I heard from the man and woman. I tried to explain that those foster parents weren't really taking care of those children, but nobody took me seriously. I knew that I broke the law, but I was just trying to save the kids from getting hurt. My dad told me that when the parents got discharged from the hospital, they were sure to file a case against me for kidnapping. I thought you were smarter than this, my dad said. They took Bill away. My dad pleaded with the police to let me off. He said that I had just had an overly curious mind. My dad grounded me for a long time. He took my phone away. I was only allowed to use my computer for schoolwork. No Instagram, no FaceTime, no Starbucks. I had no idea what was going on outside my house. When they finally got the mysterious sickness under control, I didn't know what had truly happened to the family upstairs. There was only one thing for me to do, and that was study. So I did, with all my might. I graduated college at 17. I took psychology and went straight to law school instead of med school. My dad was really disappointed that I wasn't going to be a doctor like him, but we kind of drifted apart since then. I finished my course load quickly, and I took the bar exam. I passed, of course, with flying colors, too. I finally moved out of the house this year when I was offered a position in a law firm. I just turned 20 years old this year. With everything that's happened, I never really stopped thinking about those kids, especially about that little boy named Bill. That's why I was so shocked when I was asked to help out on a case. There was a man and a woman who were charged with abusing children that they had in foster care. There were allegations of withholding food and violent punishments. That man and woman managed to foster a lot of children over the years. When I looked at the case file, I recognized the man and the woman right away. They were the couple who lived above us when I was still staying with my dad. The only problem was my law firm was hired to defend them. I went to the first meeting. The man was named Greg and the woman was Sue. They were a married couple. I wanted them to burn in 7 hells, but I couldn't show that until I found out where Bill was. I volunteered to take the formal statements of Sue. She was smoking a cigarette and looked so smug. I hated her so much. These charges started a long time ago, but it was never proven, she said. A few years ago, Greg and I got really sick. There was even this stupid little girl who told the police that we weren't feeding the kids. We didn't press charges because her father begged us not to. Of course, nobody believed her. That little girl seemed so delusional. I wanted to lose it, but I had to keep my cool. I wanted to smash the cigarettes in her stupid face. This woman was lying to me, but somehow I had to gain her trust. I heard about that story, I lied. It sounded so ridiculous back then. It was in the news, I think. So how are your kids? They must be quite grown up now. Sue laughed. You and I have client-lawyer confidentiality, right? You'd never give up my alibi. I nodded. It's all true, my dear, she said. I started to shake from head to toe. I tried to be calm so I could ask the next question. Where are the children now? Did you give them up? What's the name of your social worker back then? And that crazy criminal told me. She told me everything, believing that I was under oath to keep my silence forever. I walked out of the room with my head held high. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't save the kids before, but I could save them now. I went straight to my boss's office and gave him my resignation. Then I drained everything in my savings account and jumped on a plane. It took me a long time to find them. I found the little girl in another city. Her name was Linda. She was currently being fostered by an awful woman who had a lot of children in her house. Linda was the eldest one there. She was only 13, but she had to take care of all the younger kids. She cried when I told her that I would do anything to get her out of there. She also cried when she told me that the other little boy's name was Hank. He didn't survive. After they got discharged from the hospital 6 years ago, he was moved to another foster home, but he was still weak and he didn't survive. Linda and I went to find Bill. That little boy was lucky. He was actually adopted by a nice gay couple in the country. He's 9 years old now. When he saw me, he said that I looked like a person he dreams about all the time. I cried when I heard that. Then I hugged him as tight as I could. I took Linda with me. When we got home, it was chaos. The law firm wanted to sue me, but they couldn't. Word got out to the media about what Sue and Greg really did. The reporters came after me, and I felt like it was my responsibility to tell the truth. The law firm was in hot water about defending people like that. Greg and Sue were convicted by the courts. They were sent to jail for the rest of their lives. The police are still tracking down the rest of the children. As for me, well, I lost my license to practice law. First and foremost, I broke lawyer-client confidentiality, and I talked to the media about the case. I didn't have any money left, and I needed to give Linda a proper home. So I went back to my dad, even if I didn't know what to expect from him. When he met me at the door, he looked at me for a long time. Then he put his arms around me. "I am so proud of you," he said. My dad was still practicing medicine. He was more than happy to take us in. Last night, after tucking Linda to bed in my old room, I went to have a talk with my dad. "I've been thinking," I said. "Law wasn't really for me. I think I'll go back to school. I'd like to take up medicine this time." He smiled and replied, "Helping people is in your blood. You get it from me," he replied. Then I asked him to help me with something more important than medical school. "Dad, can you help me with some adoption papers? I'm not actually eligible to adopt because I have no steady job right now. I know I'll be a good doctor someday, but right now it's not about my brains anymore. It's about my heart." He hugged me tight, and then he sighed. "There's something I have to tell you. I should have told you years ago, but was scared that I might lose you." My dad told me that I was adopted. He and my mom fostered me right after I was born. In less than 6 months, they adopted me. But then, after a year, my mom passed away. "I didn't think that we could ever love a little child so much," my dad said. "After your mom died, you were the only thing that kept me going. You became my life." A million questions burst into my head. I wanted to know who my birth mother was. Why did she give me up? Where was she now? Was she a genius too? What happened to her? But I shook my head. That mystery could wait another day. I had to focus on Linda now. I took my dad's hand and looked into his eyes, filled with tears. I said, "You never made me feel like I wasn't really your child. Thank you." He replied, "I always knew you would do great things. Being a lawyer and a doctor is just the tip of the iceberg. Now I can see you're going to be a great mom too. Great mom too. Great."
I ran away from home, and it was terrifying. Hi, my name is Catherine. It all started when the most popular girl in my class, Ellie, was having a party on Saturday night. Everyone was going, and I couldn't believe that I had been invited too. She lived in a huge house with a pool, and her parents had let her invite 200 people. I was nervous about telling my mom. This was the first party I had ever been to. And I knew she didn't like Ellie. She said that she thought that she was a bad influence. But I was 15. I could take care of myself. My mom and I have always argued a lot, as she will never back down from a decision. But I was going to this party. I told her about the party, and she refused. Nothing I said would change her mind, even me bursting into tears. Like I said, my mom will not budge when she has said no. A huge argument followed. I was screaming at my mom, and she was shouting back at me. I was so sick and frustrated of her trying to control my life and treating me like a little girl. I was angrier than I'd ever been. She was ruining my life. Without thinking, when she stopped at some traffic lights, I picked up my school bag, opened the door, and ran. When I was a few miles away, I started walking. I sat on a bench for a while thinking. I hadn't really had any plans, so I wasn't sure what to do now. I decided I would stay away for the night. Then, by the morning, my mom would be so sorry that she'd let me go to the party. I already had 6 missed calls from my mom, but I didn't call back. She deserved it. It was much darker outside now, and a few drunk people shouted things at me from the bars as I walked past. I didn't feel comfortable anymore as it was getting closer to midnight. The anger that I'd felt earlier was disappearing. I decided that maybe I would head home and just sit near my house so I felt safe. But everywhere looked different in the dark, and I wasn't sure where things were. I'd been using my phone as a torch, but then the battery ran out. I was trying not to panic, trying not to think about what could be hiding in the shadows. An article that I read recently popped into my head about a girl who had been abducted and murdered walking around at night. Suddenly, I was terrified and started running. The street was deserted, apart from a parked car ahead of me. And as I got closer, I could see someone sat in the driver's seat, watching me. As I passed the car, they opened the door. I screamed and fled down the road, not knowing where I was going anymore. I tripped over something, scraping my hands and knees, but I got up and kept running, my heart pounding, whimpering in fear. I ran and ran, but then something grabbed my arm. I screamed again and writhed and kicked the person until I realized that it was my mom. She had been the person in the car, out looking for me. She took me inside and looked after me. We both cried. She told me I had worried her so much, and I could see in her eyes that I had. I had never seen my mom look like that before. She told me I could go to the party if it mattered that much to me, but I said I wasn't sure that I wanted to. All I wanted was to be with my mom. I felt so glad to be with her, but so ashamed that I had scared her. I had terrified myself that night, and I will never do something so reckless again. If you have any crazy stories, please share in the comments below. And if you like the story, hit the like button and subscribe so you can see our future stories.